Backstreet's back. Mike, the Gooners podcast has returned from its slumber. How the hell are you? Happy New Year.
Hibernation, I would like to call it. I've been sleeping for the last 7 weeks. Happy New Year to you as well. Happy almost Chinese New Year to you, which is
hey, thank you.
That has to be said. I know how much that means to you.
Japanese.
So we're back, and who better to guide us back into the channel of love and podcasting than someone who Andy sees as our podcast creepy uncle.
Mm-hmm.
I call him our podcast daddy and our podcast mom because little do most people know he has both sets of sex organs, and he lovingly breastfed Andy and I for the first 3 years of our podcast. So his umbilical cord is longer than his beard. It goes about 5,000 miles from God, Manchester to Denver. And he's the shining light and heartbeat of the Burkamp Wonderland podcast. Welcome back, Danny, the GFP.
Hello, my pretties.
Pretties might be a little bit.
Did you actually Google the distance of God, Manchester to Denver? Because if you did.
I did, and it was actually slightly less than 5,000 miles. See, this is the research this is what I haven't been able to do for the last.
Gone deep.
Danny, he just gave us shit off air for nerd stuff. Yep. And this is what he does in his free time.
He had the nerve to ask who was Jason Isaacs. And if you're there, Jason, hello to Jason Isaacs. Look, nobody's going to get that.
I am way too cool. I'm way too into WWE to understand who Jason Isaacs is. So
don't say a word, Andy.
He never beat The Undertaker. That's all I'm going to say.
Well,
so, Danny, it's been a long time since we've done a live pod. We did two, by the way, check them out on YouTube. We did two really good interviews with Cole Bassett.
That was very good.
I say they were really good because I actually, was part of both of them. And Amy Lawrence talking about the book 89. Both of those interviews are not really time sensitive. They weren't about Arsenal the day before, the week before. It was just about experiences. So check those out on YouTube.
Still relevant now.
Yes, absolutely. And hello to the lovely Michael Hernandez. It switched just as I was about to say Becca to Michael Hernandez. So also to the glorious Becca Rhodes. The last time we did a pod live, Unai Emery was still 3 days away from getting the sack. So to say we had a lot of catching up to do is a bit of an understatement. So just a quick explanation, dude. Danny, I've gained a lot of respect for you. Finally. Haven't always had it. Finally got it for you for doing your podcast week in, week out, fortnight in, fortnight out, every month, every year for decades. I know you have nothing better to do. But it's not that easy. It's impressive.
I can't take the credit over Christmas. That's got to go to Jason and the lads because I was still stuff happened, and so our last proper podcast was December the 20th, and from there that was the Arteta coming in, and the one before that was a week before. So I really didn't do anything in 3 weeks, and it was Jason and Chris come out of retirement. It was nice to see him. The seas were too rough for him to go hunting, so it was Jason and Chris. And all the others that were doing the live shows, because to do live shows on Boxing Day, and John helped out Jace made a commitment to do live shows after every single game. I've made no such commitment for podcast like you lot. I couldn't be bothered. I felt a bit sad, but what are you going to do?
Well, look, you've got the fortune of having Jace and a bunch of others to pick you up when you're down. Andy has the misfortune of just having me.
That's more than enough. That's what keeps me going.
Well, I think it was a combination of us just both being like, "Yeah, fuck it."
Well, to be honest, I've had travel and illness and work has just been. I know that people think that this is my full-time position. It just reeks of that. But I actually have a day job where November, December got absolutely nuts. But to be honest with you, more than anything else. I just right after Freddie came on and Freddie ended up coming off, and the Twitter and the addiction that I have to just having to be involved in every single conversation and every single piece of news because I feel like it's important for the podcast and all, it just got to me and I just fucking crumbled in December. It's just enough. So I'll never get tired of Arsenal. I'll never get to the point where I don't watch the games, don't come over to go to games and stuff, but some of the social media stuff and the Twitter and all that has just gotten to me. So I apologize for falling off the face of the earth, but I had to get my head screwed back on straight again. And I think I've done it. Does it look all right?
Mm.
So before going any further, we do also have to mention something that is truly sad. And Danny, I know how hard this has hit you. And I don't want to go any further without commemorating a very special person in the Arsenal community overall and someone that you were very close to. This is our first podcast since we lost David Faber, a.k.a. Gooner Gras, someone I've met, of course, through you and your podcast. He passed away on Christmas Day. And while I had only really met him a couple of times, spent maybe a total of a couple of hours with him at the pub when I came to London, it hit me harder than I expected. The man just kind of was everything that you want, an Arsenal supporter, a kind of a mentor in Arsenalship, I guess, if you could say that to be. And I'm going to miss him. But, Danny, if you would kind of tell us how you came in contact with David and got to know him, and anything you'd like to say about the great man.
Yeah, I'm not really good with things like this, but I asked Dave, I said, when we were doing, because our Steve passed from our podcast as well, but the way we look at it, Steve was ours. Steve helped build, was there from the start of ABW. He helped build it, and so Steve was ours. Goonerholics was everybody's, because everybody in Arsenal knew him. Loads of people knew Steve, and so having two of my friends that I've done, both of them done over 60 shows with me, and as each show is probably 2 hours, an hour, maybe with that, the beginning and the end, so maybe 3 hours. That's going to be 180 hours. And then every day in WhatsApp for years and years and years, just on and on. And then we knew Steve wasn't well. We knew Steve was going to end up passing because it was just, he had cancer. But with Holic, I had no idea. And he was ill for a while. He went in, he had an operation. We thought, that's it, he's going to be back. And then he passed away Christmas Day, which of all the days to pass, and this is his birthday, would have been his birthday, I think, on Saturday, the 11th.
Yep.
I think he would have been 63. I mean, that's no age. He used to always go on about, I'm looking forward to retirement and can go. But you said you met him twice. What really annoys me is I was at the, I've only done one game this season. We beat Villa 3-2. I was meant to meet him after the game, but the lifts weren't working. And as much as I could have bumped myself down the stairs, I'd have ended up in hospital. And so the lift that they told me to go and use was the service lift. I sat there for 20, 25 minutes. So I messaged him and said, Dave, I'm stuck. I can't go down in the lift. And he said, oh, well, I'll wait around for as long as he can. He wasn't feeling very well, so he had to get a lift. So by the time I got down, he'd gone. So that was my one chance I could have met him. But yeah, for the first time, I was saying to Dave before we went into hospital for the operation, I said to him, when was didn't Chris get you on to come and do? Chris did a massively organised the Invincibles, I think it was, Chris did. We did a 2.5 hour show, and Chris had loads of YouTube links and all that lot. And that's the first time Dave joined us. And he said, no, Raj got me on the first time. And I remember thinking, wow, because I got into podcasting with Arsblog, and Dave was on Arsblog doing his podcast. And I thought, bloody hell, I'm going to get to speak to Goonerholic. I was a little bit nervous about that. I'd done maybe 20, 30, 40 shows before that, maybe a bit more. And then I was thinking, bloody, I'm going to speak to Goonerholic. It's like the first time we had Andrew on the podcast. You've had him on yours, haven't you, Andrew?
Yep.
I'm on every week.
You think how the hell you think how the hell is Arsblog on my podcast? The man invented the Arsenal podcast, and I felt the same way with David. David invented the Arsenal blog. He was one of the original ones. You look back at his website, which is still there because Andrew from Arsblog hosts it, and so I don't think he's ever going to let it go. No. He's been doing blogs for 10 or 11 seasons. You go back and look at them, and his very last one that he did was in October, and I think there was about 5,000 replies of people commenting. I mean, every time he'd have a few hundred replies, and he'd try and reply to loads of them, but it's just so weird thinking. I've still got all my WhatsApps from him, so I've got 2 years worth of WhatsApps from him and Steve, and occasionally I'll go and look at them, but it just makes me too sad. That's why I've not done the tribute pod yet, because I have to listen to them. And when you have to listen to podcasts that you've done with your friends, and I mean, I get emotional watching Love Actually and Frozen and The Greatest Showman, so I can't. I mean, I've only known Dave for 4 or 5 years, maybe like that. And there's people that have known him all of his life, people that have met him at football that are much better friends with him than I was. And I don't know how it's affected those people, but it's just such a wonderful bloke. And he would never, it's like Jace used to say, whenever we'd say to Steve, how are you? Steve would go, I'm fine, even though he wasn't. And he'd go, how are you? Holic was the same way. Oh, you silly buggers, he'd say, just forget about it, I'll be all right. And I thought he'd be fine. Like I thought with Steve, I thought they'd be fine. Yeah. It wasn't fine. It's just really hard for the entire Arsenal community. When you've got Arsenal and Freddie Ljungberg and Lee Dixon and Amy Lawrence and all the people that are Arsenal legends all talking and tweeting about him, and obviously Arsblog did as well. It's just really hard. But I think he'd love to have seen the way I think he was always very, very subdued with how big of a name he was in the Arsenal world, whether it be just for blogging, podcasting, or just going to games. And I think he'd look back, he'd see this and go, he really was truly loved by everybody. You'd never heard anyone say a bad word about him, and it's just
not a single person. I mean, everything from his voice to his demeanor to his welcoming of foreign fans. I mean, I hate the fact that you didn't get a chance to meet him because he's a good hugger, and you could tell he meant it. I got in touch with the club because it was important to me, among others, to make sure that he was going to be commemorated in some way. And he was in the game program of the Chelsea game, which I was lucky enough to pick up in person because I was over there. But, the club emailed me back and said, we've been following his illness and we're aware of, I mean, they were as into him as he was into them. So, we do have other things we need to talk about, but I just didn't want to let the moment pass without, a significant tribute to Dave, who we will miss, and if we could all be about a tenth as quality and as practical and warm and welcoming as he is as an Arsenal fan, then our fan base will be all right. So, so hail to him and rest in peace and best wishes to his family. So. On a brighter side, shout out for my trip. Met up with a couple of people on the concourse before the Chelsea game. One of them's in our chat right now, Mass Gunners. Good to see you again. And Karen Russell, just outside the Emirates. I was with my son, and this woman comes barreling up to me with a big hug, and it was hilarious. My son's like, "What is going on right now?" And I was still in a good mood right at that point because I didn't realize yet. I hadn't found out that I was going to miss the whole first half of the fucking game dealing with a ticket problem. So that's another story. That sucked. But Mikel Arteta, Andy, has come on board. That's probably the biggest thing that's happened since our last.
Yeah, it seems like a long time ago now.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't texted or seen each other since the Falklands conflict. So, so what do you think of this, Andy?
Sorry, it broke up for a second. I heard Falklands conflict, and then it went. So what?
And the whole internet just exploded. Just what do you make of the whole Arteta? I know, no idea.
I don't know, man. I wasn't all in at first. I wasn't convinced he could just show up and take what I thought arguably was a cancerous locker room and a really big club and turn it around. And I think I posed the question on Twitter, why? And all these people just kept going, he's Pep's number 2. And I just kept thinking, well, that doesn't mean anything. And I feared the bigger players would run him out of the dressing room and wouldn't take to his ideology. And I'm glad that I'm wrong, because it appears from this short tenure, the players have bought in. I think he's with the likes of convincing Xhaka to stay, who looked like he was already 2 feet out of the club. Aubameyang coming out and saying that he's happy regardless of what reports have said. Ozil looking miles better recently than he has under Unai's entire tenure. I loved in that game against Leeds, Mike, where David Luiz misplaced a pass, and the first thing he did was turn to Mikel Arteta and really put his hands up like, I apologize for that. So I'm glad to be wrong. I mean,
under Emery, he would have just told everyone to fuck off and take
right
on the pitch. I mean, that's the change that's been made.
Yeah, under Emery, you kept hearing about how we didn't have this identity, and I feel like with Arsenal, we're starting to see something happen. We're starting to see the players get better, and the results again haven't gone our way. And I think a lot of that has to stem to the players just not being good enough. But we got to give it time now. I think he's the right man for the job. From his first press conference, it was just a home run. Everything he said, the look in his eye, the fact that he was coming back to a club that he had a small place in his heart for. It's great to see. I'm excited to have him as our manager. I think that what we do going forward is going to be exciting.
And the best news is that, the quick turnaround that we've had, basically we've won the league. We've won the treble.
How do you think that?
I don't know. I think I consider the game against Leeds as part of the treble. So we've won that one. And then the league is to see who finishes 8th. So we'll get that.
Sure. Now that you're explaining it, it all makes sense.
Yes, I mean, Danny, I'm just readjusting kind of what I see as our attainable targets right now, and that way we have to win the treble. So, what are your thoughts on the first 3 weeks of Arteta FC, Danny? Are you on the upswing emotionally?
I'm always on an upswing emotionally, whether it be down to sugar-based delights or whether my mother sneaked me an extra Tassimo coffee, which she did today. I think about 3 coffees in a row and some crumpets. There you go. An English person who eats crumpets, they were gluten-free, but I'll gloss over that. It's been really good. I didn't want him as manager, but unlike a lot of people, whoever is the manager, I'll support them. I feel a little bit let down by Freddie because Freddie was, I'm going to say it was rubbish. I expected a lot more from Freddie. I think Freddie took too much of what Emery had done and copied it rather than going, no, all of that was nonsense. I know what to do. He didn't do any of that. I mean, the West Ham game, us 3 together could have beaten West Ham. They were that rubbish. And a little while after, they sacked Pellegrino, the bloke named after wine. So then Arteta came in and I thought, well, I'm going to support him. And like all Arsenal fans should do. Well, none of us are attention seekers, so none of us are going to go, no, that's it. I'm never supporting Arsenal again. Burn the club down on any of these Datsun driving tools that do stuff like that.
And then we don't sell merchandise.
No, although you should do.
We're living in Spain when we're not.
We'll pretend to live in Spain. Sorry, go ahead, Denny. Sorry.
No, I had nothing important to say.
No, I was just going to say,
that's why we have you up.
What I loved about Arteta in the first week, it was the same kind of principle, and he kept saying the same thing over and over again. I want the fans to be happy. They need to get behind us. And essentially, he was telling the players, if you don't buy in, you can fuck off. And that's exactly what Arsene was always that manager who would stroke their egos, and Unai just didn't have a fucking clue. And now you've got this manager who's come in and learned from the best, like, hey, if you don't buy in, you're not going to be here. And it's refreshing to see that, because even after this match, and we'll get to it in a minute, I mean, he makes comments in the post-match pressers that don't necessarily throw people under the bus in a Mourinho-type fashion, but he lets them know, like, I'm not happy with that. And I think it's refreshing to see a manager do that, because there's a thin line, and he plays it very, because he was a player and he knows how he can push. But I've been super impressed with him so far.
Well, he's done a good job of catering to the fans, not in a way that kind of undermines himself or is fake or anything like that. But he's basically said he's acknowledged the fact that there's a disconnect with the fans and the club that needs to be fixed on game day, and has, in a very skillful way, put the onus on his players to fix it.
Mm-hmm. As a collective.
Which is a breath of fresh air compared to, the chicken and egg thing, where it almost seemed like we were saying, okay, we were being told we had to be better supporters, and then the players would get their confidence back. No, let's just, at worst, let's all do it together. At best, let's, have them show what they're about so that we can get back into it. And I'll tell you, having been in the stadium for that Manchester United game, that game was the very definition of where we need to be and what we need to be doing, both as supporters and as the players. That was the first 90-minute game, I think, that both the supporters and the players have played this season. Other than that game, there's been some mixed results under Arteta. A draw on Boxing Day in his first one, the capitulation against Chelsea that broke my never having seen Arsenal lose a short streak in some 15 games or so. But if I wasn't in for the whole game, does that still count?
But Mike, even against that Chelsea match,
the first half,
as a sports fan, you can't go into every match assuming you're going to win. And I think the biggest thing for us under Unai was we would lose matches and we would walk away saying there's a reason we lost, because we were shit. When you lose to Chelsea in that manner, it's the first time I've ever seen an Arsenal fan base not want to lynch a player for making a mistake, because Leno has saved us so much. It seemed like every supporter after that mistake just went, oh man, that just sucks for the guy.
It was a 2 to 3 point mistake, but
it was. But the amount of points he saved us. But
yeah,
you left that match, even though we had lost, you left it thinking to yourself, okay, I'm seeing the signs of a blueprint being put in place. And then you hear Arteta after, we're not physically fit enough to complete a match the way I want to. And then anyone who has a footballing brain can see, the last 20 minutes we fell off.
Oh, you could feel. I mean, we were just, absorbing pressure pretty much from 5 to 10 minutes into the second half.
Yeah.
And I turned to Jake. I'm like, there's no way we're going to be able to hold this off without some lucky counterattack goal getting us 2 up, because they're just absolutely slaughtering us. And we, like I keep saying, we missed the first half. So I didn't even get to see, the show that we put on in the first half, which apparently was brighter, was stronger. And that goes to our ability to get off from the opening whistle a little bit better. But as great as everything has been kind of heading, we had a little bit of a reminder on Saturday that we're not quite back at the invincible stage quite yet. So let's talk about Palace.
Yeah. So we started brightly again with an early goal from Aubameyang. In the post-match, Arteta said to BBC, "The first 35 minutes exactly what I want from our Arsenal team to play like." And again, we're seeing. Mike, it's refreshing to see us from the kickoff want to actually own the game. We don't want to just jump into a shell and allow the other team, as we've seen the last 18 months, 12 months, dictate. We're actually going out there and creating tempo, and it's refreshing to see that after all this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indictment on a coaching staff to see a club who has so much individual talent, although some might dispute that. I still think that, our talent is probably top 5 in the league. That doesn't be able to get it, can't just get its shit together from the off. This isn't baseball where you have a game or two every day for 6 months and, it just runs together. It's 1 or 2 90-minute periods a week. And top coaches and top players, you should be able to have that moment when the whistle blows to start the game be the absolute peak of preparedness and energy and mentality and all that. And, it's a learned skill, and we just haven't had that these last, 6-7 years. So, we've seen that starting off a game strong, like with Chelsea, doesn't always end up with a result. But I'd have to say that getting off on the front foot, setting the tempo of the game, hopefully getting an early goal, maybe 2, as we see some of the better clubs doing, like Liverpool and City right now, gives you the advantage to jump on lesser opponents, so you don't have to be the one who's getting punched in the mouth 10 or 15 times before you finally wake up, Danny. Yeah. That was how I threw it, Danny. I said 10 minutes of things, and then I just said Danny as the last word.
I don't know what to say that.
Are you encouraged?
Was there a question there? What did you say?
I don't know. It was just the utter bullshit of a deranged madman. That's what I heard.
That's pretty much what we're naming our.
Are we still talking about Emery and comparing him to Arteta? Was that monologue? I was reading the comments in the chat box. So
the one comment that we got.
Trying to say.
Sorry, go ahead. Go.
Oh, I was going to say. I was thinking of a decent analogy for Arteta for Emery when he first joined. We thought you're dropping Ozil and Ramsey. Okay, we'll go with this. Okay, we'll have custard on our roast beef and our roast potatoes. We'll see how it goes on with this new way of doing things. And we quickly realised that having custard rather than gravy on your roast meal isn't going to work. But we gave him a season of custard on it. Personally, I'd have eaten it because I love custard. But then you think, well, this isn't getting any better. You've got all the tools there to be a magnificent manager. And towards the end, it was a game of who's going to get the blame this week. Who's going to be the scapegoat this week? Because Emery would never take responsibility for whatever's gone on. And the first thing Arteta has done, the 2 most important things you need that Arteta's done, team unity, playing players in the right position. And like you were saying, Andy, letting people know without picking on any certain person. But he recently had a quote, something along the lines of, if I don't like what I see, then something's going to change. And that, unlike, I know when Freddie did it, he said he didn't like Pepe in training, which is... maybe Emery has seen that as well. Maybe Arteta has seen that as well because he didn't play him that often for the first couple of games. He was bringing him on, and even now, I'm not sure that Pepe is still ready to be a first team player. Playing all the time. Maybe he needs to come on as a sub. But the thing that Arteta has done, like what I wanted, is playing the players in the right positions. I mean, one of our most revelations this season, biggest revelations, has been Lucas Torreira in midfield. Play him where he needs to play, and that has made such a difference. But you were saying about Wenger.
So obvious, though. I mean, how...
I know, it is. One of the best players for club and country before we got him. In the first season, he got, wasn't it 6 man of the matches in a row or something? Yeah. I remember reading like that. And then... I've completely forgot what I was going to say now.
Wenger.
Oh, yeah, this is Wenger 2.0. We saw towards the end of Wenger's time that things were going wrong. He wasn't getting the proper investment. I was listening to the Transfer Market podcast. Oh, no, it wasn't. It was TIFO. TIFO did a thing on YouTube where they were talking about one of the blokes who used to do the transfers at Arsenal. And he was saying when we tried to get Hijwan and we tried to get a few other players, and he went through and said, this is what happened. A lot of it was Wenger dilly-dallying and that lot. And that explained why. But you look at the tools that Wenger had in his final years, didn't really have much other than Ozil and Sanchez, but then that was only for a short length of time. We had a quality Ozil and Sanchez being on his game. But then you look at what Arteta's got now, when you've got Lacazette, Aubameyang and Pepe. Just imagine what Wenger would have been able to do if we'd have had them three rather than having Giroud, Walcott and, I don't know, pick one other. So
Trevino.
All Arteta needs now is to get in that transfer market and get a couple of decent centre backs. We've seen today that Mavropanos has gone on loan to a German second division team. Another central midfielder, Emil Deathrow, has gone to Championship Huddersfield, and John Jules, Ministry of Sound, he's gone to middle of League One Lincoln. So there's been a clear out of young players. They're going to go out. They're going to get some time. And letting Mavropanos go as soon as now that Chambers is injured, that means there's got to be a couple of players coming in, whether they're on loan or permanent transfer. But these people saying we're going to get Upamecano, that is never going to happen.
I don't think it will either. And it appears that Mustafi is going to be going to Turkey too. So something that has to be happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, he can take his sunglasses and his dancing to Istanbul for all I care.
You've got a feel for him though, haven't you? Because he had a couple of Europa League games where he did well, and he gets back into the Premier League team, and then he goes, "Oh, clown time!" And you think, "Oh, no, you had your chance. You should have said, I'm injured. I can't play Premier League games." He'd have been fine. He could have left a legend.
The goal was Aubameyang's 16th of the season. We finished it off, Mike or Danny, with a wonderful team move, which consisted of 18 passes. I mean, pure and utter orgasmic Arsenal. Danny, it's wonderful to see those type of goals again. I don't care if they come every 10th game, but that was what we were used to under the Arsene tenure of just seeing us ping the ball around back of the net, and we see it every week with City. I'm excited to see this type of football again.
Well, I saw a little bit of training, and Arteta was stood in the middle, and he's going, you to you. And you saw that on the pitch today. Triangles all over the pitch. And Crystal Palace are a decent team at home. They've got some really decent players. And to go to Palace, who are really good at home, and to get a draw when they had a shot that went off one of our defenders and went in, they didn't deserve to get that goal. Aubameyang should have been sent off, which you're probably going to come to later, so I'll shut up. But you can see the play going on. You can, like the Wenger days, way, ole, where every time we park 30, 40, 50 passes. Peak Wenger in recent times was that goal, Jack Wilshere goal against Norwich at the end of the season. That is the kind of thing we saw. And I don't know if you've been listening to my podcast, but I've said a few times, there's only 3 players at Arsenal now that were there during Arteta's playing days. Do you know who they are? I mean, you will be listening, thanks.
I listen because I give you banter in the
Chambers, Xhaka.
No,
Xhaka wasn't there. I would say Ozil for sure.
Yeah.
Martinez in goal.
I'm not sure if he was.
Yeah, he was there for the game we lost against Reading 7-5, wasn't he?
Yeah,
we won.
Yeah, we won. Yeah.
Should have lost it. We were 4-0 down, weren't we?
Yeah. We won that game only to then lose to Bradford City, I think.
It would have been that it wouldn't have been Holding if it wasn't Chambers.
Mike's already said it.
Chambers.
Oh, was it Chambers? Okay. Wait, Bellerin wasn't there?
Huh?
Antonio.
Bellerin was there.
Mike said Bellerin as well. See, you don't listen to each other, do you?
What?
Yeah. Who are you?
So we talked a little bit about Arteta not throwing the team under the bus, but this is what he said. This is why I like his press conferences. In the first 15 minutes of the second half, credit to them because they pushed. We switched off completely for the goal, and that's unacceptable. Again, Danny, refreshing that a manager can call out his players in an interview, but not completely throw them under the bus. And it's not like, it was an unfortunate goal, but Xhaka and Luiz did switch off, and that's clearly an upsetting characteristic, and we keep seeing it. But I love the fact that he's able to utilize the press to say to these players, it's unacceptable. And if you're one of these players, you got to be thinking, fuck, you might be bringing people in to replace me, right?
Yeah, like you were saying earlier on, the number of players that looked like they were going to go: Ozil, Aubameyang, Lacazette, Xhaka, all of this lot were all looking like they were going to go before Emery went, and now it looks like they all want to stay, which is brilliant. And by picking out the situation, rather, my mustache is tickling my nose, but picking out the situation rather than individuals every time, those two players are probably going to go, yeah, the boss is right. Luiz has been. Did you ever think Luiz would be a good player for us, let alone outstanding, which he has been a couple of times already in the 5 games that Arteta's been in charge? And those two, before under Emery, those two would have listened to those. If Emery would have made that comment, them two would have been, here we go again. It's our fault as usual. But I think under Arteta, they're going to go, yeah, the boss has got a point. We do need to not switch off. We've got to be on our game the entire time. Otherwise, little errors and little bits of bad luck are going to happen to us, because he's only lost 1 game out of the 5, which is mainly because we ran out of steam towards the end of the game. But it's going to take time, and you can see. Didn't Arteta also say that the amount of fitness, the lack of fitness of of Arsenal between now, when he left in 2016 and now, I don't know what the word he used to describe it, but he was implying that it wasn't good. How can an entire team have just such lack of fitness? And we've seen as the games have gone on that I think in that Chelsea game we saw that they were knackered. But as the games have gone on, we were outrunning, especially Leeds. When Leeds ran out of steam with about 20 minutes ago, we were still going. And that is really good to see.
What was Unai doing in training then?
We've watched him in training.
Badly translating stuff by the sound of it, because the players to come out and say they don't know what the manager wants, whether it be they don't understand what he's saying because of the language barrier, or because they don't understand his tactics. Either way, it's not acceptable.
Well, I think I know part of what happened, because Mike and I were lucky enough to be about 15 feet away from 2 hours of training. And it appeared during one session that everything went through our number 10, Ozil, and it was pepper the ball to him, let him dictate tempo, pace, blah, 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 blah. We saw that a few different times in training sessions. 3 weeks later, the season starts, the guy can't even get into the squad. So if you're the first...
What happened in between those 2 events, though?
But even still, like if you're the first team...
They got robbed in the middle of by gunpoint.
That's all you're practicing. You know, you need to have a backup. So
at the time we were like, oh, this is really cool. I like the way that this is happening. And now we're just like, oh, that was absolute shit what he was doing. That's why we suck. It's not that hard, as coaches go, not to be a dick, but also not be ignorant of our shortcomings. Arteta's figured that out in 3 weeks, and some special ones still haven't figured that out. But if we could just kind of even up the score on the Champions League winning trophy thingamajig, then I think Arteta will clearly be better than Mourinho. But yeah, I'm back to wanting to hear what he says after games, whereas with Unai Emery, it was almost just a joke.
Yeah. So, Mike, I don't know statistically. I'm assuming it's about 35, but are we unlucky with the amount of deflected goals we've conceded this season?
Well, I'll tell you, we are very unlucky. After 22 games, we've conceded 31 goals in the Premier League this season, and out of those 31 goals, 257 of them have been deflections off some dude's
I knew it was a high number.
Yeah,
that's shocking.
I mean, you know how they do tables where, like, if the refereeing decisions were changed, this would be the table, or if you remove penalties from the game, this would be the table. If you removed all of the goals that have deflected off of someone's penis, we'd be 4 points clear in first place in the league right now.
Well, there we go.
That's according to ESPN UK.
And that's bad.
Thank you, Gabber, for that statistic.
We did have some opportunity at the end of the match, even though Palace seemed to just completely play us off the park for a little short period of that. I think the Palace keeper denied Pepe and Laka, and then Socrates saved our asses.
What kind of football were we playing, Andy?
Oh, yeah, titillizing.
Titillizing football, which is a combination between tantalizing and titillizing. Yeah. I'm surprised you went over that. I was waiting for you to say that.
Lacazette was unlucky though, wasn't he? Yeah, I mean, that bloke, he couldn't score a penalty if there was no one in goal. It's not because he's rubbish. Just he's only scored in 4 Premier League games this season. He scored 5 goals in 4 games.
Yeah,
but I think maybe with Aubameyang being out, the game is going to be all about him now. You're going to have Pepe one side, Martinelli the other, Ozil behind, and he's probably in those 3 games because they're not really important. Well, Chelsea.
I'm hearing he's doing a lot of work off the pitch, though.
I think it's Bournemouth, Sheffield United and Chelsea in no particular order. And a couple of those games he should do well. He's going to break his duct when Aubameyang out there because it's all going to be about Lacazette, isn't it?
Yeah. And as Danny, you pointed out before, Palace away isn't easy. I mean, they're going through their struggles, but we won't be the only team in our top 6 to drop points there.
They've won 3 times. They've lost 3 times at Selhurst Park this season. And the 3 teams that they've lost to sit in number 1, 2, and 3 spot in the Premier League table.
Oh, that's an order.
Everyone else they've either drawn or it's not an easy place to go. Those are the kinds of places, though, that we need to be able to go and stop them being our bogey team. I mean, to go to Palace, to go to Brighton, to go to Southampton, to Wolves, places where we've struggled to get points. Those are the games that before we can start saying we're back and we have a chance of even sniffing the top 4. Those are the games that we're going to have to win. So while we didn't get it done at Palace this year yet again, I think it wasn't as poor of a result as some people are making it out to be. The game could have been won easily. It could have been lost easily if not for Socrates. Dude walks around most of the time like he has full-blown rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, and fibromyalgia, and then all of a sudden he contorts his body to make that goal line clearance. That was amazing.
Did you see in the chat, Dat says that Emil Smith-Rowe, after being at Red Bull, which is the current leader of the Bundesliga, to get his second loan, struggling in the Championship Huddersfield, may show that he's not that great a player. I do worry about Smith-Rowe. He doesn't really ever seem up for it.
No, but again,
he's got a bit of the Zellum in him, I think.
Right, but was he around the culture creation where there just didn't seem to be someone to lift him up? I mean, it's been driven into the ground, but you see how Arteta reacts to someone of Reece Nelson's tenure, right? He's young, he's exciting. We've all seen glimpses of him. That seems like a project that Arteta wants to take full on. Maybe we'll see that in Emil Smith-Rowe. But what I do love is that it seems as though Mikel Arteta has sat down with Edu and other executive members and looked at these loan players and said, this is where we need to send them out. And I honestly think that if they can't fit the bill on these loans, we're going to sell them. I truly do think that he probably took this job saying there's a lot of dead weight we need to get rid of.
And then he'll end up being like a Jeffrey Adelaide or a Serge Gnabry type, where the team that we sell him for £2 million to ends up turning him around for 40 the next year. But
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, that's just bad luck. But I do think that Danny, I'm nervous for him too. I just wonder if the culture wasn't right for him. But we'll have to see. Mike, who's your man of the match?
I gotta go with someone we haven't even brought up today, which is Mainsley. I've seen a lot of diametrically opposed comments about him for the very little that I've dabbled on Twitter post game. A lot of people saying that again that he's just not up for the job, and I don't think he's the right person to be at right back. But when you are pretty much responsible for stopping one of the bigger threats that we face on a regular basis, in Zaha. I'm not afraid. First of all, I wasn't a big fan of signing Zaha as a player, and I'm still not. I think he's kind of a bit of a cheat. He's certainly got silky skills, but not often the end product. His biggest threat is getting into the box and getting hacked down or diving for a penalty, and he happens to do that virtually every game against us. But to pretty much be shut down, maybe one time I was nervous the whole time. I got to give it to Mainsley. I don't know that there's anyone else that stands out for me, but Danny, what do you think?
I only saw the highlights because I couldn't be able to get out of bed. I think Lacazette, he hasn't stopped trying. He had the joint most number of tackles with 3. He had the highest number of shots with 3. He's constantly running, constantly going back everywhere, and he hasn't given up. Which so many players now that have had that run of a dry run, and he got the assist. So also Socrates did really well at the back. I'm just looking at his stats, and aerials 1. He had 4, which is more than anyone else during the game, apart from on our side. And he had a clearance off the line, which
each of those aerials 1. I was like, man, that's another aerial 1. Do you think that when I know you love to look at whoscored.com, but when they're happening, are you like, oh, that's an aerial 1? That's a dribbled pass.
I'm surprised. Every time I saw the highlights, I thought, he's jumping again. How is he doing this? It's our centre backs are being rejuvenated. First, Luiz is playing out of his skin, and now Socrates. So you wouldn't take your dog for a walk because he'd come back with an elephant on your dog lead. That doesn't even make any sense. That's how confused I am by the fact that Socrates is having a good game.
Who do you give credit for that to? Do you give credit to that to coaching, or do you give the credit to that to finally having a number 6 that's playing in front of you and guarding you and maybe taking a little bit of pressure off of you. And again, I'm not saying that because I've dissected the performance and the location and the heat map of Torreira and whether he's helping or not. But I mean, that's the one thing that's changed in the last 5 or 6 games is that they kind of have a proper person parked in front of the back 4. I think at least that's what you want him to be doing. Is that having a positive impact on Luis and Socrates?
Yeah, it takes the pressure off them, doesn't it?
Yeah, it totally does. And it's not just one person parked in the back 4. I mean, it's been seen multiple times when a opposition player of danger receives the ball. There's typically 3 Arsenal players on him within a second, and that's so we can win back possession and counter or keep possession, right? So I think it's really helped. And, you know, we talked about it a lot with Leno last season that we knew he was a good keeper. He just had real shit in front of him. And when you have the confidence around you, you can be a little bit more lax back there. You know, if David Luiz sees that Torreira is closing a player down versus Xhaka, he's going to be in a different mindset, right? And that's not to say Xhaka is a terrible person, but more than likely the ball goes around Xhaka and there's going to be Luiz having to step up to defend. When Torreira is closing him down, you think, okay, defensively minded player, I can cut out a position, I have time to check my shoulder. Like, there's just a lot that comes in it. But what we've also seen, Mike, is, and we didn't see this under Emery, how many times have we seen Ozil track into his own half to defend? Right?
Even run to his own
exactly. Half. So to know that you've got shifts of players, I always find it interesting when you.
I mean, what's next for Ozil? Is he going to start jumping to defend corner kicks?
Right, his aerials one is going to just skyrocket. But what's interesting, and I want to find a graphic of this, but if you see teams like Chelsea, even Mourinho, Liverpool, when they're being counter-attacked, you see 2 straight lines of probably 4 players who are getting into position. We never saw that with Emery. It was a back 4, a massive hole, and then just players kind of spread out. We're seeing that more with Arteta. So there's just, I think the defenders are looking better because they're not being put into these obscure positions. However, we still see a lot of fuck-ups back there, and that's going to take time to work out, you know. We saw that with the goal, and that's why I love that the manager's coming out saying it's not appropriate. And you could see Luis wore that when they scored. You could see he knew he had fucked up, and it's great to see. I'd probably give my man of the match as well to Mainsley. When Palace probably started the match, they probably went in with, let's give Zaha the ball and make it a treacherous time for him. And to be able to come out of this and say, hey, I had him in my pocket the entire match is impressive. It really is. And let's remember, he's playing in a position he doesn't want to be in too. So you got to give him credit.
Do you think someone on my pod, I don't know who it was, somebody who knows what they're talking about, said that if he wants to stay at Arsenal, then maybe he needs to consider that he should be a utility player, or maybe concentrate at right wing back, because if we're going to play the wing backs or the full back position, Arsenal way is to get forward. Yeah. So do you think that maybe he's looked at that and gone, yeah, I'm not replacing Pepe. I'm not playing anywhere else on this pitch. If I want to play regularly, my position is going to be right back, and then maybe other positions as well. But Bellerin is long term. Now that Bellerin's had that injury, when Bellerin's come back, he hasn't looked quick, has he? Bellerin's never been the greatest defender.
No, I can't. You're right, though, Danny. If you are him, you have to look at your tenure at a club the size of Arsenal and say, I need to be that utility player. Now, granted, have we heard Ainsley come out and say, I don't want to play right back? Like, those have just been the rumors, right? Maybe he's content.
Did we ever hear Jambo say it, like, outright to the media either? No. It's just kind of known. I believe that it's true.
Jenko became a legend doing that, didn't he?
Yeah. I think at a certain point, though, at this level, you just want to play. You know, like if you said, like, Chambers seems like the type of guy, if you're like, hey, you got to go left back, he'll just be like, all right, he just wants to be on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I'd rather have someone who wants to be there in any position than someone who only wants to play the way he wants to play.
Yeah.
Chat rooms weighed in with Mass Gunner saying Mainsley, his man of the match. Becca thinks Laka looked great. I don't know if she's commenting on his performance or just his looks. She loves those French men. Torreira Torreira is the greatest of all time, says Michael Hernandez. I think that's
Or
going.
he just thinks he's a goat.
Why did he go off? They didn't show it on Match of the Day.
He apparently was injured from one of 94 different. What's that asshole's name? Ayew.
Jordan Ayew.
Not Ayew. Was it Ayew?
Well, the one who scored the goal.
No, the one who persistently fouled about 25 times and never even got a yellow card for it.
I mean, it's IU.
Yeah, and so apparently went off at halftime with injury, but from what I've heard, he was moving around after the match, no limitation. So I don't think it's a long-term thing. Data, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce the rest of that. Socrates is man of the match for him. Laka, Torreira, and Mainsley are killing us. So that's an interesting take.
You say that name as Dat. That's how she has it on Twitter.
Dat, okay. And we've got David Ziegler weighing in with a backhanded compliment about Ozil. I like Ozil, but how lightweight must a player be to be fouled by him? So in any case, we've got a pretty wide range of different options for man of the match.
Now, one of the reasons we drew that match 1-1 was because we played without Aubameyang for about 30 minutes. So I want to do a quick round table. I'll jump in first. The red card, here's my thing. It was a red card 100% of the day. My problem with it is the inconsistency of VAR and overruling an official's decision. Robertson, Virgil have produced similar tackles that would have been reviewed by the officials around the Premier League, and that should have been this has happened here. This is what the punishment was. We saw in the Liverpool and Tottenham game a few hours later almost an identical challenge that nothing happened. And I want to go back, Mike, to something I said weeks ago, that all these games kick off within 8 hours, right? And if you have a VAR central hub where you have one person who has to work, and I know in the United Kingdom this is going to be a tough ask, a full 8-hour day, they should be able to say, I've seen that happen in the Palace-Arsenal game because that was the only fucking game on television at the time, and it happened in the last game, which is the only fucking game on television, and if a red card was produced in game 1, in game 8 of the day, it also has to be produced, and there needs to be consistency because we've seen time and time again, and I'm not saying that it's a Liverpool versus the world thing, but their players get away with an awful fucking lot of these tackles, and nothing ever gets shown. So there has to be a consistency. So if the VAR officials are going to overrule an official on the pitch, they have to do that a consistent amount of times across the entire league. And it was a bad challenge, and in slow motion, it looked even worse. We know we can't take into account whether or not it was a sinister challenge. We know Aubameyang's not that type of player, but they can't think about that when they're making the decision. It sucks. I'm just pissed off about the inconsistency of it all because we could have, with our captain on the pitch who's just on an absolute tear with scoring goals, it changes the outcome of the game. And
we had amazing chances even with 10 men. Pepe.
Exactly, but you add him into the mix, and we so that's my concern with it. It's not whether it was a blatant red, but give us some fucking consistency.
Yeah, I mean, it over the course of a season, that kind of lack of consistency adds up. I don't think there's anyone that could. I mean, I have heard people try to argue that that's that was a yellow and not a red. It was a red. I mean, it was an awful tackle, just sloppy. But I love the idea of VAR, but somehow the rest of the world's VAR seems to be doing okay. Like no one's in love with the delays and the process.
Different rules though, didn't they?
But I mean, here in the U.S., in Germany, Mozambique does a really good job with it, and other places. But I mean, it's fucking ruining the English game.
Apparently, we're stupid, Mike.
Yeah, I know. She only stuck around long enough for.
She's one of your lot. She's an American.
Well,
why is she mad?
You seem to follow her on Twitter, not me.
So she's had shitty opinions about some of the football-related stuff, and now she thinks VAR's amazing.
Yeah.
She can leave. Bye.
See ya.
To sum VAR up, I mean, if in the FA Cup, if your stadium has VAR, you have VAR during the game. How the hell is that a thing? It should be everybody has it or nobody has it. What's the point? Or if you've got it, and we don't use it for the FA Cup. You can't, because if some teams don't have it. But VAR in this country is a joke.
Yeah, they don't use it for when the stadium isn't a Premier League stadium, which happens all the time in the FA Cup early on.
So as Ziegler was pointing to my point, I read that Paulson was VAR ref for both Arsenal and Liverpool matches, so he literally would have been the same guy reviewing the Aubameyang and Robinson tackles. So yeah,
that's just an anti-Arsenal agenda then, right?
So well, it's not just it's either that or it's a pro-Liverpool agenda. I don't know what it is, but it needs.
It's pro-Liverpool.
At this point,
it's supposed to fix inconsistencies and mistakes and in the game, and it's literally creating mistakes and inconsistencies that weren't there before. Hey, Robbie. I mean, there has to be rules about when the call on the pitch is overruled. I mean, even in American football, it's got to be like clear and I know that they've used those terms in VAR for the Premier League, but there is zero consistency, and every tackle is a little different. But I mean, there's got to be a set of rules, even if you want to like dehumanize the game further. There's got to be a set of rules about what it takes to overrule. I know that they've done the thing with the triangle on shirt pulling. They've tried to like codify to a certain point certain elements of the game that are hard to codify with handball and all that. But you got to have some sort of guidebook and handbook. And if it isn't just so clearly obvious that the referee didn't see it altogether, then I don't see.
What I loved about it when it first started was they kept saying, well, we don't want to step on the toes of the referee on the pitch. It's like, that's why it's video assistant referee, because you're assisting them by rewatching what happened to guide them, and you're not overstepping them. What they should have done is said, hey, 2019, 2020 league, VAR is going to be used for offside and only offside, right? Get that down to a science, and then next year we're going to go into, and then you choose whatever it is. But they've come in and they've had this massive gray area, and they're pulling out, and then it's a broken system, and it's not going to get any worse.
And as annoying as annoying as it is in the MLS to see that ref, make that signal and jog over to the side of the pitch to watch a television, it is somewhat more effective for the person on the pitch to say, I'm going to get some angles that I might not have seen and slow it down so that I can make sure that I saw what I thought I saw. And I want the game to be refereed correctly, so I'm going to overrule myself if I think it's necessary.
And I don't even think it's necessary for them to run to a screen. I think you can
give them an iPad to run around with.
Quickly tell them exactly what happened and just said, hey, from what we're seeing on TV, this should be the ruling. Done.
You can't celebrate goals anymore.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
It's the whole point of football is to celebrate a goal when it happens. Now you think, well, I can't celebrate. It used to be bad enough in the old days when you would be offside and you jumped up like a lunatic and you look around going, fuck, it's offside. Every single goal now that goes in, you think, well, why should I celebrate? I don't know if it's gonna be disallowed or not. So I'd get rid of VAR. Didn't want VAR. I like the referees and things and chance and luck and bad luck and all that lot. That's an integral part of football that has been for 130, 140 years, however long it is. And I don't want VAR. VAR is killing football. And as you've pointed out, Andy, and if you go and have a look at Twitter and you put Liverpool and VAR into your search, you'll see that the number of times Liverpool are getting away with stuff, identical stuff that other teams have done, and other teams are getting punished harshly. Like you're saying, Aubameyang's was a red card. It's not a 3-game red card. It wasn't violent conduct.
No.
We should appeal that and try and get it down to 1 game. But we're Arsenal. If that was Liverpool, in the old days, Man United, they get away with it. But it's going to...
Was Heung-min Son's leg breaker tackle appealed down?
Yes.
So they actually got it down.
He cried and said, sorry, he's not that kind of person, then went out and did it again a few weeks later.
Well, maybe he isn't that kind of person, although it seems to be becoming more popular. But maybe he isn't that kind of person. I don't know that should have anything to do with the length of the suspension. But there's clear intent in one and not in the other.
What I don't understand is why not just put an official in each half of the field?
Yeah.
What was the statistic? Like 96% of the calls were accurate before VAR, so there's a 4% margin of error, which in like football at speed is not that terrible. May even be small in that. Throw 2 linesmen, have 4 officials on the pitch, and just fucking go with it. And as Danny said, trials and errors that happen in these sports is part of it, right?
You feel you've had one up over the other team if a goal's offside, and you see it later and you go, we won that offside goal. Tough luck. That makes it all the more sweeter.
Yeah, for me, it's a broken system, and
there to be referee zonal marking where we have 10 different referees scattered throughout the pitch who cover
yellow flags at everyone.
Yeah.
Exactly. The balls are just going to be pinballing off of various people's legs. It's going to be great.
And I think there should be a moment in a game where a light switches on, and then if one of those referees scores a goal, it counts double. Ooh.
And then like the referee against Man United where he allowed an offside, and then like that, hey, no, I was celebrating the fact that I made a good decision, not because you were a Man United fan and you let Man United score. Yeah.
And then there's a goal 50 feet above the goal, like in the Rock and Jock basketball games on MTV, where if you can get it up into that goal, you get 5 goals. And what's the names could have really used that against Man City yesterday.
And then when a goal goes in, the light, the goalposts turn a certain color, and if it turns blue, the goal scorer has to run over to a big wheelie ball thing, where you spin it and it stops
and be dizzy,
and then they get to then dictate like, ×3 or automatic red card, you've been sent off for scoring the goal. The goal still counts, but now you're playing the man down. See, they're just.
I do think that they should instead of the watch, they should tie the goal line technology to lights on the goalpost. Just like that would be so exciting. Like if Socrates, everyone's waiting for that light to go on, and Socrates gets over and stops it, and it's red instead of green or something like that.
And another thing I'd like to add to the game, Mike, since we're talking about it, was remember back in the 90s when the hockey puck used to light up when it was shot? Can we get that with the ball too, please? That would be fantastic. As Aubameyang shoots the ball, a big thing of fire behind it.
Or it makes like a little song, like that Simon thing that you used to play, like when you hit it.
That's too much. You've ruined it now.
If you kick it on a certain patch,
it's been ruined. Let's move
far. Don Juan, welcome back to the chat room. You've just missed our mini podcast on how to improve the game of football. It starts with getting rid of VAR and ended with a bunch of ridiculous silliness. Craig Pawson, by the way, also the man on the pitch who decided Jorginho should be able to stay in so he could score the game winner against us, or the game drawing goal, I should say, against Chelsea. So, yeah,
Ziegler.
I don't have a ton of the things so you could see it when it was on the puck when it was on.
Is that what I just said?
Yes.
Fucking guy.
And he's going to mail you that question.
He was probably missing part of the pod to mail me some bullshit, and then came back and was like, "This would be a good idea."
So yeah, absolute shithousery. Some talking points that don't have to do with the Chelsea or with the Crystal Palace game. Transfer window's upon us, Andy.
It is. We don't have to jump too far into it, but do you guys think, and we kind of alluded to it, right? We're seeing all these center backs leaving on loan and what have you. Do we think that Mikel will be given some cash in the winter transfer window, Danny? Are you thinking the Cronkies, who I was with on Friday, Mike, at the Avs game, do you think they'll give cash to Mr. Arteta?
I think as Arteta was had the pen snatched out of his hand in the summer of 2018 by Emery, and then they kind of shit on Arteta when they gave the job to Emery. That to get him back this time, when they've already made him look like a bit of a tit by everyone saying that's it, he's got the job, but then turning him down. That for him to leave a comfy position at Man City where he was respected by everybody and the entire game seems to really respect Arteta, I don't think he'd come and be manager of Arsenal and see the state that some of the players are in or some of the positions are in without having some kind of agreement of maybe I want 50 million in the transfer window, whether it be 50 million for loan fees, the players on loan, their wages, or buying new players or any of that lot. But the fact that we've had Chambers injured, Mavropanos go out on loan, someone's definitely got to come in unless Per Mertesacker is going to make an amazing comeback. So, I hope he does get some money, and I think he will get some money, but I don't think it's going to be the kind of transfer spending spree that we saw in the summer, which a lot of that was elongated over 3, 4, 5 seasons. And there's been a lot of talk today on the Twitter saying that we're going to end Saliba or bring Saliba back early. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but Saliba hasn't had much of a season with his team in France because he's had two injuries.
He's been brilliant when he's been in, but he's been hurt when he's been out. I've seen comments, I think, from Arteta today that sound very reminiscent of the transfer window Wenger comments about, how there's really nothing in line right now, but if there's a player that's the right price and the quality, it doesn't sound promising. It's certainly.
I feel like, though, Mike, if you looked at 10 managers in the league at this week, they all say that same type of thing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, there's usually some smoke behind a January transfer. I remember when did we sign Santi over the summer or over January? Either Santi or Monreal came in from Malaga in January. And,
so here's what
what
happens if Socrates goes down this week?
Well, it's completely realistic. I mean,
we're going to rely on Holding, who's coming off of an injury, as we saw against Leeds, and needs football under his belt, and then you got Luis, who's played really well, but he's not going to be able to stay fit and play at 100%. I mean, there has to be something happening, especially with the Mavropanos thing.
And Christian from Chicago asks the obvious question, which is, does Mavropanos going out on loan and Mustafi being linked to Turkish clubs mean that we have a center back lined up in the January transfer window, because we'll only have 3 fit center backs if we don't bring one in? I mean, that seems pretty obvious, but I don't see the wheels moving behind that at all. There seems to be no, not even the stupid ITKs are really harping on any particular person that they're surmising.
They're not really in the nose.
No, they're not. They're in the balds. But yeah, it's.
Danny,
I don't think he's going to get the. Chambers is fucked. Holdings looks shaky. Tony Adams retired 18 years ago, apparently. So I don't know how we can't be looking to. Yeah.
Oh, man.
How can we not be bringing in a new center back? But even with Luis and Socrates rejuvenated by having Torreira in front of them, there's a long Europa League run and 16 games of the Premier League season to have 3 fit center backs playing 2 spots.
And the youth players we've got haven't. That centre back, Zach Medley, and a couple of the others, they've not been playing. They've not been called up and played first team games that often.
And we don't know yet that Mustafi's gone, right? So he's technically one of 4 that could slot in until he's
putting himself in the shop window. We found the one person that trusts the board.
Who's that?
Michael Hernandez trusts the board. I think he's kidding, but yeah, he trusts the board to bring in another center back, and Mass Gunner says there's no break in Saliba's loan. I don't think that there is either. I don't.
Nor do I.
How can you make the
Rob Ford has made the most accurate statement of the entire pod, saying that the Lamar is the in the nose favorite at the moment.
More wingers.
Yeah,
Lamar Mavila.
Okay, Arteta's got one thing over Wenger. Back in Wenger's day, we were a top 4 side, and then teams would go, we want 20 million for this player. Arsenal want him 40 million. Now, Arsenal are an average team at best. They're going to go, we want 20 million. Yeah, you can have him for 15 because we know how much trouble you're in. And they know we spunked a load of money in the transfer window. I think some of it might have to do with Mkhitaryan. Apparently, he might be, I don't know this. As usual, it's Twitter and people who know, because I know bugger all. But Mkhitaryan might be signing for Roma for 10 million, and then he's on 180 grand a week. You could get 3 half decent centre backs for that price.
I watched him play 20 minutes for Roma about 3 weeks ago.
I thought I read somewhere that he doesn't he have a clause in his contract where if he plays a certain amount of matches, they have to make a bid for him.
I don't know that he's starting though. I mean, I saw him Fiorentina, and he came in like 70th minute and immediately lost possession 4 times.
I think he's played 12 out of their maybe 28 games all season and scored 3 goals. I think 2 of those were in one game. I think when he started off with us against Everton, he got 4 assists in the game. I think he started off his time. Who was it? Was it Adebayor? When Adebayor first goes to a club, he's fantastic, and then you buy him and then go, oh, God, he's rubbish. So I think it's that again.
But Danny's right. 180 million. You get 3 players on 50,000 a week. That'll be, squad ballers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll work.
Fancy math. Speaking of fancy math, apparently Aliko Dangote has come out for the 215th time and said that he plans to buy Arsenal. He planned to buy Arsenal in 7 out of the last 8 years, apparently.
It's because no one's answering his emails, and so you can't distribute his Nigerian wealth.
Exactly, and no one's and his nephew is waiting with a bag of money. He planned to buy Arsenal in 2018. He says he's planning to buy them in 2021 now. I've announced that I'm planning on porking Kate Beckinsale in 2022. And I plan to make that happen. Apparently, the guy promised the Nigerian Super Eagles $1 million or the equivalent if they won the African Cup of Nations in 2013. I don't know if that's true or not, but the story goes that they went ahead and messed around a little bit and won, and he still hasn't paid that yet. So when we have you on, Danny, from your nursing facility, in season 15 of the Gooners podcast, will we be talking about how Dangote saved our club when he bought it, how he ruined our club when he bought it, or how he died homeless and penniless before he ever bought it?
Is this a real person or is it a skit?
No. This is like an oil magnate from Nigeria who is a big gooner and has been talking for years since.
Oil in Nigeria? I thought they had precious metals in Nigeria and Africa. He's got oil. Didn't even know there was oil there.
He's building an oil refinery, which he says is the reason he hasn't made this bid yet. But
I'm still got my fingers crossed for the Manuel Flamini. Flamini's going to come in and buy it.
He could buy that for pennies.
Yeah, he's worth billions. Yeah, I've never heard of this bloke, and I didn't know there was oil in Africa. There you go,
Andy.
What?
When you're chilling at the KSE headquarters, as you do.
Yep.
You must be hearing people talking about their sports cars that they're going to buy with the 5 bills that they're going to get paid.
I'm pretty sure that this guy doesn't have the money he says he has.
That would be my kind of point. Yeah. I don't know that he does. And I think he's just – although I think he is appearing on Arsenal Fan TV next week. So,
oh, good for him.
Just don't worry.
Some user questions. If you guys in the chat have anything, ladies and gentlemen, that you would like to ask or to state, please speak now or forever hold your peace. We're going to start with one that was tweeted to us from Glenn in New York, Glenn DITM on Twitter. I'm going to direct this one to you, Andy, for obvious reasons. Would you sell the man who told us all to fuck off and did not apologize? We could get some decent money for him now that he has shown some good form. Or am I missing some math equation where 4 good games in a row plus disrespecting the club and fans is okay? I don't want to open this can of worms again.
No, if we're going to – okay, so in the same argument, Aubameyang, our captain, a week after him, went to Instagram and basically told the club to fuck off because he was hanging out with troops or had a relationship with troops. It's the exact same thing. He flipped the club off, the same thing Xhaka did. But you know what? We have to fucking forget that shit. Xhaka has put his head down and done right by us. He's playing well. If a club comes in the summer and gives us stupid money, I'm sure we would take it. But until then, we're seeing a different player on the pitch. And we're seeing a lot of leadership on the pitch. When the ball isn't in play, Xhaka has been screaming at our players, has been encouraging them, and just fucking grow up and let's stop this cancel culture of wanting to fucking destroy everyone that does something wrong and support the goddamn team. But thank you for the question, Glenn.
I think you should encourage the opposite.
Airline ticket being bought from New York to Denver right now.
I leave tomorrow, so
we need to try and wipe out the cancel culture of being outraged and go, I think you should do it more. I think there should be a lottery, and every time someone wins a lottery at the stadium, he comes up to them and shouts in their face to fuck off.
Ooh.
Just do the opposite. Encourage it.
See, I like that. I like the thinking outside the box, going with the contrarian approach. Let's embrace what happened instead of making it into a controversy. I've had my head in that controversy. Let's turn it into a game.
Yeah.
Blow off some steam. That's
I want to see passion. Not that much passion. Let's chill out.
It's like being roasted. Like when you're roasted, it's the one time in your life you sit there in a chair and you're just like, the more rude people are to you, the happier or the more successful.
Also, Glenn from New York, how egotistical are you to think that Xhaka told you to fuck off? He could have just been talking to one person in the crowd.
Oh no, he was talking to me.
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't talking to Glenn. He was talking to me, and
if he was telling anyone to fuck off, it would have been Danny.
I like Glenn. Oh no, you mean Xhaka? I like Xhaka as well. I think very good.
I'm just totally. I don't mean any of this.
I think that's older gentleman. What we're on about.
You've just taken one of our 5 users and alienated him now. Somewhere in here, I think we have
a great question.
The question from David Ziegler. Yes, there it is. Thank you, Andy. I couldn't find it. I do not, but before we went on air, there we go. That was before we went on air. A certain person's one hair was being combed.
Yeah, but do you get it though?
Oh, I can't part with it. Oh, I get it. That's a dad joke. You'd be where are the crickets sound effect?
No, I've stopped that now. I just now post a picture of your son reacting to one of your dad jokes.
I love that picture, by the way. He's so handsome. All right, so next question.
Who would play Mike and Andy in the Gooner Pod movie? Now, Mike, I think it's only fair for Danny to answer this question.
Well, of course. I mean...
right, I would say the one that's going to play Mike would be Brad Pitt, obviously. He's got the looks, the charm, the wit. I would say the one that plays Andy is Charlize Theron. From that one where she was a prostitute with no teeth and she smoked a lot.
Oh, I was going to say, until you said that, I was looking forward to finally getting to consummate our relationship in a way that
ruined it.
That I could get into. But
would Xhaka get the armband back? You know what, Mike? I would
give it to Glenn.
I was thinking about this the other day, and I bet before the end of the season's over, we see Xhaka with the armband on.
But that involves ripping it off of Aubameyang at this point, though.
Well, he's not playing for 3 games, is he?
Ooh.
So according to Wikipedia,
who wears it on Saturday?
Well, vice captain is Bellerin, 3rd captain is Lacazette, and 4th is Ozil. So I reckon for going by that, it's going to be Lacazette.
Well, that's actually an interesting call. Who's gonna wear that with Aubameyang out? David Ziegler going with, of course, the fat guy and the Jew. I'm apparently both of them, though.
Who's playing me then?
That's what I was going to say.
Oh, this one's good.
Zach Galifianakis and Tom Hardy.
I think Rob Ford's only writing that because he knows that, I have a man crush on Tom Hardy.
Oh, me too. Anyone called Tom Cruise, Tom Hardy, Tom Hanks.
Mm-hmm.
Was Tom Hardy the guy that played the Jewish guy?
Yes.
Oh, best role ever. In
I don't like that they brought him back though.
Sneaky Peaky Blinders.
You could bring him back from the dead 25,000 times, as far as I'm concerned. He is best person on that show.
He's a see a really good
by the way. He
did the Craze one where he plays both Craze, and it's brilliant.
Actually,
everything he does is great.
I'll take Tom Hardy in the Gooners podcast story anytime.
Oh, I thought when he said I'd take Tom Hardy, I thought I'm going to close my ears on this bit. I thought there'd be mentions of back passages.
I'll take him in ways that he's never been taken before. All right.
Oh, mommy.
And the final answer, Butler and Waldorf of the Muppet Show. I do kind of feel like we resemble them sometimes. So next question is it's a combo question. Speaking of hair, combo question from both Christian and Dave, North State Gooner, both from Chicago. What kind of hair product does Arteta use? And part 2, who has better hair, Arteta or Bellerin? I think the obvious answer is Arteta, except we have not seen Arteta with dreadlocks and a man bun yet. So I'm not sure you can really adequately compare the two.
I feel like Arteta's got Lego hair where you just pop it off.
Well, he has Lego hair to the point where there have been chat groups in the Twitter sphere that have been named after his Lego hair.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah, it's a great question, but I'm going to have to go with Bellerin just because he's done more with it.
So flexibility and kind of, what is the word, when you can change things, that's what's important to you with hair?
Yeah, you need to have flexibility with it.
I've removed all the flexibility I have from my hair in recent weeks. Danny, the deal. Who's got better hair as far as you're
Remember that time, Mike, we tried to use Nair and we both started gagging because of the smell?
Sulfur. Disgusting.
Yeah.
We auctioned off and what was...
How did that go? Did you get rid of everything that you were doing?
Just about. We auctioned off our leg hair. Not that the person bidding on it would actually receive the leg hair, but just that we would nair, our legs shaven over the summer. And for people who think that was just a stunt, we actually tried it, and we're never going to do that again.
It was disgusting. Here's a question. Do you think Arsenal will preseason tour in America this summer?
Yeah, they've not done it twice in a row. They went 2014, 16, and 19. But I'm hearing some rumors that they might be doing a quick stop on the East Coast this time. Danny, what are you hearing in God Manchester circles about?
Yeah, they're going to be playing God Manchester Rovers at the recreational ground, and it's going to be a packed all-seater, but there's no seats. The only seat that will be there is the one I'm sat in. So it'd be nice. I think they need to. I don't like it where they do 3 or 4 games. Well, you've got to understand that all the distances is why they don't do more stops in the summer. But they should do. It'd be nice for them to go and play in the subcontinent, India, Pakistan, that kind of area, because that is a huge market. But I like going to the USA because then you lot get to go and interview the stars. You pretend that you're paparazzi.
Well, they're in Nigeria as well. If they go to Nigeria, they don't go to Nigeria because they're afraid that they'll get bought. Well,
if by yelling, "Do you like pineapple on your pizza?" is interviewing, then yes, that's what Mike and I have done.
Quality.
That's the pinnacle. We've reached the pinnacle of journalism.
Broke new ground.
You know what? One thing we have learned going forward, Danny, is if we're ever given media passes ever again, everything they tell you not to do, we're going to do the complete. We're just going to do all of those things. Don't go up to the players and take pictures with them. We're doing it.
Yeah.
Don't go down on the field and kick balls back from behind to go. We're doing it.
We played a little too much by the rules early on in our career and missed a tremendous amount of opportunities, I think.
Did you know who didn't play by the rules? Soph. And she crushed it.
She's the best.
She crushed it.
Yeah, that, and I'm going to have a liter of whiskey before I show up at the stadium.
And she called Zlatan going back to Milan before anybody else I heard.
And here's one thing where Mike didn't really followed the rules, Danny. He wore a suit.
What?
To the first game.
It wasn't a suit.
And then found out James Benj was wearing shorts and a t-shirt.
And who did I see whilst in said suit? Who did I get us in to see?
You didn't get us in to see anything.
I got us in to see Josh Kroenke and Vinay and all those guys. And they're like, there's some journalists here. There's a sloppy looking, but
like, why is this man at a wedding ready to give away his daughter the way he's dressed?
That looks like a man that we're going to put our owner and chairman of the board in front of, and voila, it happened. And you're welcome, John Cross, because if not for the way I was dressed in that game, we wouldn't have had that woman come up and say, "You guys must be the podcasters," with the most disappointed and
Eddie, that was literally the first.
Oh, he's frozen. Let's call him names. Andy, big girl.
What a cute face he's frozen on too.
Oh, look at me. Ooh.
Look at me. I have English teeth.
Oh, you're back.
None. Are you back?
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah, it was weirder for us than it was for you. All right, so we think. Did you say Arteta or Bellerin with the best?
Bells.
That's where Manu Biti had the best hair ever.
He did.
Thinking outside the box again. From Tim, actually, serious question. AKA Aces High Gooner. What lineup would you play, specifically front four, now that Alba is suspended?
I think you throw Martinelli in to replace Alba and keep it the way it is. Martinelli, for me, has proven that he is an eye for goal. He looks hungry, and I think giving him some run of games, maybe tweak where Lacazette's playing, but I still think Lacazette's a better guy who drops deep to receive the ball and makes things happen. And Martinelli, every time he got the ball, especially when he came out against Leeds, he just wanted to crack it at goal. And I think we have a hell of a player in him. I like that we're going to be slowly embedding him, but why not just put him on there and just say, fucking go for it, man? Because he's shown that he can do it. So I would just tweak that little part like for like.
And play him up top rather than on a wing role, because you've got Pepe and Martinelli and Alba on either side. Or
you could, like I said, you could do it two ways. You could just like for like switch, or you could have Lacazette fill in that Aubameyang and put Martinelli out on one of the sides. But I think he's gonna. I would trust him to come in and do some business for us.
Yeah, I mean his work rate is fantastic. I'm almost as excited to see him as I am disappointed to not have Aubameyang, and so it's almost like I'm back.
Do we know how long the Aubameyang ban is for? Has it been
3 until it's not 3, and I think it takes a couple days for that to go through.
They should be
for sure that we are appealing. We tend to not appeal for some reason. Like I don't know why. We often don't.
Wenger never appealed for stuff. Very rarely did he, because he didn't want to argue. But when we had David Dean on there, we used to when he was on the FA panel or the Premier League panel, we used to appeal everything and get away with it.
Yeah.
So how would you go top 4? Would you plug Martinelli in or keep him as an impact sub?
It's got to be Martinelli. But I think if we're going to play Martinelli, then you need to say to him, look, I don't want you doing what Aubameyang does. I don't want you scoring goals. I want you to make Lacazette look good, because when Lacazette looks good, we all look good. And that's the most important thing. I want Lacazette to score a goal. And I think if when Aubameyang plays, Aubameyang comes in and then
special for YouTube viewers only. The comment. That's what you look like when you were when you were frozen.
I know what that means, but why is he writing that? And I asked you not to show anyone that picture.
I think they're one of those vinegar strokes that they're called. Mm. That's what you look like. Sorry, Danny.
No, that was it. I agree. Yeah, but we need to. When Aubameyang plays wide, we rely on him for goals. When Martinelli plays wide, I want to rely on him to make Lacazette look good.
Well, according to Becca, Lacazette looks fine.
To answer Hernandez's question, I do believe Martinelli was injured when Arteta took over as manager, and I think he's now back to full fitness. And there was rumors that he would be in the Brazilian squad, but I think that injury ruled him out.
How long do we keep Martinelli for, though? I mean, what do we, a season and a half, 2 seasons? We need to play every minute. We need to wear him out before someone else buys him, because he isn't going to be here in 3 years' time.
Based off of the small sample size we've seen, he's going to be a hell of a fucking player.
Yeah.
When you look at someone like Wan-Bissaka, he played 1.5 seasons for Palace and then was worth, 65, 70 million? Players at 5 minutes at a club, and then you're off.
Well, and being Brazilian, he's not going to stay in the Premier League. He'll go over to one of the Spanish giants, because they love a link to that part of the world.
So you're saying that we're a feeder club is basically what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay. From Matthew D'Souza, good to see you back in the chat again. If all leaves in the summer, do we have to overpay Lacazette in order to retain his services? I'm getting the sense based on his age. Was Lacazette's what, 27?
Yeah. 26 or 27.
He's 26 until he's 27.
Which means he's 28.
Is he our automatic, like...
Lacazette is 28.
Okay, so is he our automatic, like, Abba going forward, and then we fill in the Lacazette with somebody else? Or do we just blow it up, start with Martinelli, maybe Nketiah, and someone from the outside?
Didn't we just talk about how Martinelli was basically the next Messi?
Yep.
Yeah.
He doesn't listen.
That question's answered, but thank you for it.
Move on.
Next.
Stop it with the stupid questions, people. I don't mean that. I'm being horrible.
What player, this is also from Christian, what player are you most excited to see develop under Arteta? Are we going to say Martinelli and then just move on?
Yep, Martinelli. Next.
Yep. Martinelli. All right. So yeah, unless we have more questions from the chat group, I believe that is it. Thank you to everybody for your comments and questions. And I've just clicked the wrong button and somehow found out that Andy's battery is about to run out again.
He said that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, well,
I'm at 11%.
I was hoping it would have run out by now.
Damn, that's cool.
So anyway, Andy,
yes,
it's great to see you again. Danny, do we have anything to promote? What's going on with the podcast? What's going on with your beard? I owe you some money for November. I completely lost track of that.
I'll just give it to one of your charities.
You guys didn't do the shirtless naked podcast that I requested.
Well, I've done 2 podcasts ever where I've been completely naked other than socks, but no one's noticed. Because when we had a heat wave in the UK. But podcast-wise, this Wednesday, we don't do ours live anymore because we just do the live shows as live ones, obviously. And it's going to be me, Simon Collins, the
Yeah.
Our wonderful journalist. It's going to be Gav from She-War, and it's going to be Ginger Josh and me, and we will be chatting nonsense Wednesday night.
Nice.
Bunch of that's 80% of our guest list right there.
Josh is too dark for you. He's a scary human being. He's got a dark, dark soul.
Josh, Josh, I believe I met in Brighton last year before he moved.
You made a man move.
I did. He was like, if this man knows where I go to the pub now, I can't be here anymore. I have to move to like a farther northern city. So, final user question: how long does it take for a giraffe to throw up?
And I think the answer to this is Martinelli.
Yeah, I mean, when he throws up, it takes the form of Martinelli. Basically, any Arsenal-related, any animal-related question, anything having to do with nature, it's just Gabriel Martinelli.
It's like the David Moyes game of like the early 2000s. So who are we going to replace with manager with? David Moyes. The answer to every question.
And every player was Fellaini.
Yeah. And now we have him. He's actually on our squad, Martinelli.
He's the answer to every question. The next big Gooner event here in the States is coming up quickly. It's the 7th
weekend in Austin, because I'll be there.
It's not just where's Andy going to be this week, rolling up all surreptitiously and then presenting himself to the bar. No, this one is an actual event. It's the 7th annual Gooner Gras in New Orleans on February 6th. Danny, this is hundreds, if not tens of thousands of Gooners getting together. There's booze, your favorite thing. There's tons of nudity. There's an orgy or two.
Lovely.
There's no Arsenal game that weekend once again, so all of the first team players will clearly be there. Martinelli will be there, although he's underage, so he can't get nude.
In the UK, he's not underage. It's just that stupid law you've got, 21.
Well, in New Orleans, he's technically not underage either, but for nudity, no nipples for him.
No.
Seriously, if you've never been to Gooner Gras, it's not too late to come this year. There's a website, goonergras.com. That's Gooner, Gras.com. Check out the events, register. It's an awesome time. There's still good hotels in the French Quarter that are pretty reasonable. And even if you're across the pond, Danny, you should check this out and come and see how we do the Gooner lifestyle over here. There's also drinking. I don't know if I mentioned that.
Yeah, Danny, be committed and go.
Danny, I arranged with Amazon.com to have you shipped here for this year's event.
Oh, yeah? How much?
And, well, that's the problem. I found out how much the bubble wrap was going to cost. I'll just FaceTime the motherfucker.
And adult nappies.
Yeah, well.
So I'll be sat in that box for at least a week.
Yeah, well, that's the fun of it, though. So anyway, look forward to seeing many of you there. It's a good time. Becca, get your ass down to New Orleans, and the rest of you as well. And that's about it. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or some other audio-only format, please take a moment once in a while to check us out on YouTube. You can see Andy yawning, which he does most of the time. My mouth is open. And you can see our lovely faces and the beautiful Danny, the GFP.
I'll be there.
And yes, David Ziegler mentions that there is actually an Arsenal game that weekend. I am remiss in mentioning that Daniel Van de Donk Den Donker, who married Leander Den Donker and has the best name of all time in my mind.
Van de Donk is married?
Well, no, I made it up.
I love her.
She's Van de Donker Donker. And Medema will lead Arsenal into a North London derby that Sunday. And apparently, I've been told that we're doing a podcast right after that. I don't know how that's going to go, considering how hungover people are going to be, namely me. We talked about Don Gate. Is that Watergate?
Rewind about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Rewind your life about 10 years as well.
All right. I'm at 9%. We're ending this bitch.
All right. Lovely to see you, Russ, while I was over. I will see you soon, David and Rob. And
is that Hoggy Russ?
Hoggy Russ, yeah, absolutely.
Hoggy, it's fucking 8:30 at night, man. You need to be in bed.
Should be in bed.
God.
If Danny wakes up before Hoggy goes to sleep, that's a weird day. So, Ryan, see you soon. And thank you all for joining us. We should be back next week.
Bye.
Maybe.
Bye.
All right. Come on, you Gooners.
No. That's what Jason on.